Hello, and welcome to Religious Perspectives. Today we have with us, as our guest, one who represents the evil one. Now, you're a priestess of the Temple of Set.
That is correct.
Your temple carries on the tradition of the First Church of Satan, dating back to 1966.
It carries on that tradition and it expands and builds on it.
Do Setians then worship the personification of evil?
We believe that the Prince of Darkness is responsible for consciousness, the psyche, what divides human beings from animals. One aspect of that is an understanding of the idea of good and evil. We don't worship a god of evil. We admire a being who takes the idea of good and evil, works with it, and makes enlightened choices.
This reminds me of the Crowley dictum, "Do what thou wilt." Doesn't this enlightened self-interest merely imply that you people are callous, brutal, and selfish?
Hardly. The kind of self-destructive action that you're suggesting is radically self-correcting. Intelligent people recognize allies. They don't go around making enemies for no good reason. They see things in their true light. Rational self-interest doesn't mean ditching the other guy. It means working with the other guy when it makes sense, and going your own way when that makes sense.
But what of those who cross you? Isn't Satanism a religion of revenge?
A person who is careless is going to eventually meet up with a better. If I happen to be that better, so be it. If I carelessly or foolishly, for no good reason, go up against someone who is my better, then I have to take whatever the consequences are. This is a religion and a philosophy of responsibility. You can't say that you're doing it because some god told you to do this. You can't say it's written in some book somewhere. You are responsible for what you do. You are the final arbiter of whether or not an action made sense. You'll have only yourself to answer to when you look back on your life, whether it was a life of adventure, learning, increased excellence, increased power, increased wisdom, or whether it was a life of meanness, smallness, narrow-mindedness, vengeance, petty vengeance, and self-destructiveness. You choose. It's always your choice. Not a god's, not some other authorities. It's your choice. And you are the only one you answer to. You are the only one to blame.
Who or what does the Setian believe or worship?
The Setian believes in him or herself, worships his or her capacity to think and to choose, to evaluate, to create. The Setian strives to become his or her own god. That is, in a nutshell, is the philosophy of Satanism and the philosophy that we pursue in the Temple of Set.
Then, how do you perceive the Prince of Darkness?
The Prince of Darkness was originally a complement to the Lords of Light in ancient Egypt. We feel that an emphasis on the light side, the solar side, what is obvious, this has to be balanced, this has to be seen in view of an earlier philosophy, a philosophy which sees in darkness a philosophy which is not afraid of the dark, a philosophy that draws a line between the people who cower around a campfire in the darkness and talk about the monsters out in the dark who are waiting, and the people who pick up a torch, the light bearers, who then go out into that darkness, who go out and explore the unknown. Those are the people who are regarded as heretics, who are regarded as deluded, as evil. Those are also the people who found empires, make great discoveries, take humanity where it's never been before.
This is what I can't understand. If Lucifer is the so-called bearer of light, then why do you call him the Prince of Darkness?
Set was originally the Lord of Darkness. He is a stellar deity in the Egyptian mythos. I might point out that while darkness is a symbol of ignorance to people who are themselves ignorant, most of our knowledge about the true position of man in the cosmos comes from the astronomers, the people who found knowledge in darkness. It's no accident that Galileo was persecuted by the church to his death. There is wisdom in darkness. There is wisdom to be found in going the solitary way against the doctrines of the church, the doctrines of a society. There is a refining of the individual intellect that comes with the path of the rebel and the path of the innovator. We see this in many mythologies. In the case of the Bible, wisdom, the desire to choose and to know good and evil, is portrayed as the source of all evil. In other cultures and in other societies, people were a little more forthright about this. There's Prometheus, who gave the gift of fire to mankind. The gods punished him for this. Perhaps Jehovah's act in expelling Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden was no righteous act. It was a matter of fear regarding what could be accomplished by beings who could think and choose for themselves.
Miss Aztec, let's bow our heads in prayer. It's not too late for you to surrender your soul to Christ. Sweet Jesus, come. Take control over this woman's life.
No one can feed themselves by having someone else eat for them. No one can learn by having someone else learn for them. No one can put the responsibility for their ability to decide and to choose on some god, some myth, some legend, some sacrificial lamb. If I climb with my own hands and feet. If I fall, it will be my own doing. No Messiah, no Christ, no Buddha, no Allah can live my life for me or give my life meaning. I am the only one who can do this.
But people need the fear of God in them, the fear of being cast into an everlasting lake of fire. Don't undermine religion simply because it keeps people in line. It makes them obedient and holy. I mean, what kind of world would this be if it were populated by freethinkers like you? Chaos would result.
It's an interesting thing that in most instances, it's the people who are interested in doing the will of a god who have brought bloodshed and chaos. You look at the history here in the United States of people like Roger Williams of Rhode Island. There are others. People who in pursuing their beliefs as freethinkers did not claim a one true way that demanded conquest and conversion. These people never brought about war and bloodshed. They never tried to force their neighbors to believe. The freethinker is fundamentally interested in seeing those around him to pursue the same kind of reasoning, the same rationality, the same essential concern for the capacity to reason and choose. I'd probably make a better neighbor than you'd think.
Okay, what of Richard Ramirez and these other satanic slayers?
Psychotic killers are failures. Drug cultists who are using voodoo to keep people in line are failures. Our philosophy is not a philosophy of failure and violence and mayhem. By far the majority of people who have preyed on others by far the majority of these people have chosen whatever philosophy it was at hand, whatever religion or belief it was at hand, to justify their action. To say that the Prince of Darkness or the philosophy of Satanism is responsible for the combination of ignorance and psychosis that one sees in these crimes, which have nothing to do with Satanism, is like trying to associate the Crusades with the message of Jesus Christ. Certainly, there were those who argued vigorously that slaughtering in the infidel was a part of a message of love.
But that was one small period when the church fell from the grace of God.
This is the time when the Christian faith had its strongest hold on the mind of men. You judge for yourself what the product was. Today, that grip is weakening. Technology is moving ahead. Progress is being made. People are living longer. They have more freedom, more enjoyment in life. You tell me what Christianity has brought to humanity. At its height, people were being burned at the stake, hanged for heresy. People were dying in their 20s and 30s, filth and disease. People said it was God's will. I'd rather be my own God if this is the God the Christians have to offer.
What about books like Michelle Remembers, written by ex-cultists who describe blood rituals, sexual perversion, and brainwashing?
Stephen King makes a lot of money writing such things up as fiction. Other people make a lot of money writing up such things as fact. There's no evidence that any of these things have actually happened. Where are the convictions? Where are the trials? You get these people on talk shows. They never talk to police departments. They talk on television, hawking books. Give me a break.
Don't you enjoy tax-exempt status as a priestess in this satanic organization? Isn't that your angle?
That's an interesting question. I don't make any money from my job as priestess. This is not true of most religious clergy who make a good living from it. I'm a software engineer myself. Such spiritual counsel as I give to other Setians is offered in hopes of helping their self-development. I'm not paid. Don't make any money off of it. I don't attempt to claim my vacation expenses as religious expenditures.
If all churches were to be taxed, that most certainly would include your temple.
Not a problem. tax the churches. We'll have no problem. We won't complain.
So what's next on your agenda? World conquest?
World conquest isn't the point. What we're after is an individual awakening. We don't see putting the churches out of business anytime soon. There are always going to be people who want that opiate. There are always going to be people who are looking for a proxy salvation, a proxy deliverance. People who want a dead belief system that will give them all of life's answers. We're not looking for those people. We're looking for the few. We're looking for people who want to walk their own path in the world, who want to improve themselves. We're not interested in the people who are looking for an answer to life's problems. We're looking for people who are interested in pursuing the challenges. Like Prometheus, the people who are going to steal the privileges of the gods and hand them over to humankind. Those are the people who are Satanists.
That sounds pretty egotistical and selfish to me.
Nietzsche once remarked that the weaker and more powerless a person was, the uglier the world seemed to them. My world is beautiful. What you wish to do with your world is up to you.
What about drugs as a means to achieve self-realization?
We found that, for the most part, drugs are a blind alley. The things that people attempt to accomplish through drugs, and there are people who have sought not merely for immediate hedonic sensation, but for something more through drugs. We have to recognize that. But we also know that the mind has the capacity to achieve these things on its own. We regard the use of drugs as weakening that capacity to achieve these things, in the same way that an athlete who trains without the help of stimulants is going to be a stronger and more consistent performer than an athlete who relies on drugs. It's no different with the mind. I would say, if there are people who are listening who find themselves dependent on any substance, that they should understand that it's within their capacity to stand on their own feet. They don't have to use any substance if they have the force of will to attain those same experiences, those same pleasures. For some of those people, I think the day will come when they realize that this is an illusory paradise. Then they will strike out on the path of Satanism. They will attain these things by their own effort, and not through an artificial aid.
What is the eventual goal of the Setian?
The eventual goal of the Setian is to become his or her own God. To create the universe in which he or she lives. To experience, to learn, to attain wisdom. To reach undreamed of capabilities through the exercise of will and intelligence.
And I suppose your medallion that you're wearing gives you some sort of special power to accomplish that goal, right?
This medallion is the insignia of the Temple of Set. It shows the pentagram. a very old symbol. In the time of ancient Greece, it was a secret of the Pythagoreans, a fraternal band of mathematicians and philosophers who wanted to inquire into the secret things of nature. Today, this symbol still represents a desire to inquire into the structure of the cosmos, to know its secrets. There's no more magic in this medallion than the magic of understanding. It's found in the enlightened human mind. We consider ourselves part of that tradition. The Pythagorean schools were shut down by the Christian emperors in the earliest centuries of the Christian era because they were too pagan, and the Christian bishops and clergy felt that their presumption towards knowledge was arrogant. By their action, they plunged Europe into darkness and death. We will not see this happen again.
You seem very conservative and intelligent, but there's this great proliferation of information in the media, and they all say the same thing, that you people kill babies. What gives? Why this paradox?
Fear.
But fear of what?
Fear of the unknown, fear of responsibility, fear of change and complexity. Scapegoating is an old practice. The word itself comes from an ancient biblical practice where, instead of taking responsibility for their own sins, the ancient Jewish tribes would select a pair of goats. One would be killed to serve God. The other one would be laden down with the sins of the people, beaten with sticks and sent into the wilderness. We still do it today. It's just that now we have television to help with the job.
Now that you've appeared on television, aren't you afraid some Christian will seek you out for revenge?
It's a possibility, but freedom of speech isn't worth much unless you use it. I'm glad to say that we have come a bit from the days when blasphemers were stoned to death and women who were claimed to be witches were hanged in the public square. I believe that one of the things that does make a difference is that we do have a separation of church and state in this country. Many people would like it otherwise, but we still have some separation of church and state. People still have some ability to distinguish between fact and fantasy.
As a representative of the Prince of Darkness, what would you like to say in closing to the American public?
If you wish to, you have the capacity to know good and evil, to be the captain of your own ship, to run your life in such a way that you advance, you exercise the highest within you.
Thank you for this enlightening interview, Miss Oztec.
You're welcome.
And thank you, audience, for joining us. This is Religious Perspectives.